Hello everybody and welcome to another live research session where in today's video we will be researching the fight between Tanner Boser and Daniel Spitz, which takes place this weekend at UFC on ESPN 6. Now I am very interested in this fight from a betting perspective, quite simply because Daniel Spitz isn't very good. There are lots of holes that a potential opponent could exploit, and Tanner Boser, at least on paper, looks like he might have a lot going for him, although I don't know anything about Boser at the moment. But the good news is his odds are relatively decent. We look here at the moment, he's currently around about a 1.71 favourite, which is minus 141 for an implied probability of 58%. And with Spitz having giant weaknesses in all areas, if Boser is decent, he could be a good bet here. Now, the thing that gets me interested in Boser is that he has fought at heavyweight in some decent promotions like ACB and M1 against a decent level of opponent. Guys like Chase Gormley, DJ Lindemann are decent, and also he hasn't been finished since way back in 2015 when he fought Tim Hague, which is very, very impressive because obviously every heavyweight carries legit one-shot KO power, so the fact that Boser has been able to compete against these tough guys for so long without getting finished is a very good sign, especially because he's been competing in some tough promotions. And the good news is also Boser, there is a good amount of footage available on him, so there's 4 recent fights that we can watch of his today, which is great. And now, before we get into the video, I just want to remind everyone that this is live on Twitch. So if you do have any questions throughout this live research session, please drop them in the Twitch live chat and I will answer them as we go. And if you're watching this video after the fact on YouTube, please hit the like button and please also leave a comment. And I also want to say a big thank you to Xander Money, who is my first ever subscriber on Twitch. Really appreciate it, mate. It means a lot. Still getting to grips with Twitch. Don't actually know too much about it, but I think if you've got an Amazon Prime membership, you can basically subscribe to someone on Twitch and they get money from your Amazon Prime subscription every month. Not too sure how it goes. Now, I haven't actually learned too much about Twitch yet, but I do have a meeting with a company on the 24th of October where I am getting like a whole Twitch interface designed with like animated shit and custom emotes and stuff. So there will be perks to the subscriberships on Twitch coming soon. So hit me up in the comments on YouTube if you know a lot about Twitch. Give me some ideas in the comments, guys, and let me know like what kind of custom emotes and things like that you would like to see just in time for the 24th of October, and I'll get these companies to design some cool shit for us. So thank you very much, Xander Money, for a big smile on my face, mate. I really appreciate you subscribing. So now let us get into looking at some X factors for this matchup. So the first X factor to look at is, where does this Boser guy train? And having skimmed through his Instagram profile, it looks like he trains at a really small gym called Shaved Bears MMA without any notable fighters. So it's a really small MMA gym, but it is worth noting that even though this is his UFC debut, he has known about this fight since at least August the 9th, which means he's had a couple months to prepare. So we know a massive percentage of fighters when they make their UFC debut lose, but at least he's not making his debut on short notice. And like I said, Spitz isn't great, so we won't need to see too much from Boser to pull the trigger here at, close to even odds. And even though I don't like betting on guys in their debut, if I see something special, I will make an exception, like when we bet on Makhmud Muradov to beat Alessio Di Chirico a few weeks ago, and he came through for us in a big way. So Boser doesn't train with anyone of note. Daniel Spitz does. He trains at Sick Jitsu with guys like Michael Chiesa and Sam Cecilia, who you can see here, although I'm not sure what the heavyweight situation is like at Sick Jitsu. Here we can see, Michael Chiesa, but, Chiesa fights in the welterweight division. Not too sure what kind of heavyweight training partners Spitz has got at Sick Jitsu, because it seems to be a gym, with a lot of lighter weight fighters in the UFC. Juliana Pena was another one that trained there for quite some time. We don't really recognize any of these other guys. So, these big guys who he's training with, don't really recognize any of them. So I'm not too sure what quality of training he's getting in at Sick Jitsu. Now, another X factor to pay attention to in this fight is that Daniel Spitz is abnormally huge for the division. if we take a look at his stats here, he is 6'7" with an 82-inch reach, which is absolutely enormous. But as we know, guys who are abnormally tall for the division usually have bad takedown defense, and Spitz does. Remember, there will always be outliers like Israel Adesanya, John Jones. I'm talking in general terms here. Generally speaking, a guy that's 6'7" won't have very good takedown defense. He'll be more like Stefan Struve, and that is exactly what I would compare Spitz to. And also, guys that are abnormally tall for their division also don't tend to have the best striking defense because they tend to be quite slow, and Spitz is certainly pretty damn slow. So, with that being said, there are some holes there that Boser will be able to exploit. And, you know, like I said, I've never seen Boser fight before, but I know what I'm looking for when we go and watch his footage. Now, you know, can he exploit Spitz's bad takedown defense and low-level ground game? Can he exploit Spitz's poor striking defense? We will see. And like I say, the fact that he hasn't been finished since 2015 and he's had so many fights since then is definitely a good sign. Before we jump into watching some of this footage, let's see if there's any questions. Let me see if there's any questions on Twitch. Let's take a look. Doesn't look like we've got any questions on Twitch, guys. So let's jump right into watching some footage of our boy Tanner Boser to see if there is if there are any betting opportunities on this fight. Remember, I was interested in betting Brendan Allen to beat Kevin Holland, but he showed too many red flags in his last fight, and his fight before that actually in LFA. In fact, in his last few fights, there were quite a few red flags there. So we haven't got Boss's last fight to watch against Jared Kilkenny. We've got all of these matchups to watch from ACB. So we're going to kick things off by watching his fight from back in March of this year, which was only 7 months ago, against Zaur Gadzibabayev. And I know I've butchered that bad, so I am just going to call him Zaur so that I don't completely destroy his name. This is from M1 Challenge 101. Just make sure the sound is muted. It is Boser is the guy in the blue shorts. Let's see what he brings to the table. In terms of size difference, he's 6'2", Spitz 6'7", because I just wanted to point that out because here he did look quite small for a heavyweight. Let's see what he brings to the table. What I'd really like to see here from Boser is lots of wrestling, because Spitz has got a long 6'7", tall, lanky, abnormally tall frame, which means if you get in deep on his hips, it's not going to be difficult to upset his balance and take him down. But I don't know anything about Boser. I will also say Spitz isn't particularly dangerous for a heavyweight either. I mean, I know that, you know, he's got a knockout win over Anthony Hamilton, but we know Hamilton's mega chinny. That was also a strange knockout. To me, he doesn't look too dangerous with his hands. So early on, Boser moving very well, you know, light on his feet, couple nice leg kicks. Nothing's really happened here so far. Of course, it will, if he is a wrestler, it will make it more difficult for him to use his wrestling with this fight being in a ring as opposed to a cage. Because obviously if he drives through on a deep takedown attempt, he's just going to run right into the ring instead of a cage that you can use to then complete the takedown, chain different techniques together. Don't want to judge him too harsh for his grappling in this fight. The good news is, you know, when we go and then watch his other fights in ACB, we should get a better idea of his wrestling. So far from these boys, very much a feeling out process. Boser just staying on the outside. Very good movement for a heavyweight though. He's quite fast, quite light on his feet. Relatively good striking defense as well. You know, he was pressured against the ropes there. Didn't really, you know, eat any shots, despite the fact his opponent was getting aggressive. What I would also say is that he seems to be switching stances a fair bit as well. A few moments ago he was southpaw. Now he's orthodox. just a little bit of an issue that we just saw a few moments ago. A lot of the shots that he was throwing were falling very, very short. I know it's only 3 minutes into the fight, it's still a feeling out process, but obviously when you're fighting a guy that's 6'7", it's not going to be easy to get inside them and land in boxing range. You're going to have to fight your way inside, and so far Bozza doesn't, just in these first 3 minutes, look particularly good at fighting his way inside. And we just got a question in from Penal Erecto. We will answer it once this fight's done, because I think it's quite a long one. Once we are done with this fight, we'll take a quick break and answer Penal Erecto's question. So here we get to see a little bit of Bozza's takedown defense, which I don't think we need to see, because like I say, Spitz has no wrestling, no ground game really. So with him also being 6'7", it would be incredibly difficult for him to shoot in on a shorter opponent like Boser and take him down. I mean, Bosser's takedown defense looked alright there, but I wouldn't expect Spitz to test it anyway. So I'm hoping that, he's not a striker, if I'm being honest. I'm hoping he's a wrestler, because if he's a wrestler, it will be much easier to assess the chance that he's got of beating Spitz. We saw him go back to southpaw momentarily there. Very, very nice. Low blow from Bozza. Does this fight end up being a draw because Bozza gets a point deducted? If we see here, this fight does end up being a draw. So I'm guessing that is because a point deduction comes. That is a pretty bad low blow as well. Quite clear that one. Jesus Christ. Bit of Rochambeau from Bozza. Absolutely no need for that. So as we approach the end of this round, I am just going to read out Penal Erecto's question. So then, as the fight plays out, if there's any breaks in the action, I can answer it as we go. So he's asked, "Hey mate, just a question. How do I get more confidence in my betting? I've only been betting for a year and generally only bet $1 to $20. Anyway, I've recorded all my 30 plus bets. Have an overall profit, and I'm 8-2 in my last 10. I really want to pull the trigger and start upping my bets to $50 a piece, but I'm scared I'm going to get bitten." What I would say, dude, is if you're placing your own bets, I don't know anything about you, but if you are placing your own bets, statistically you are going to lose. 95% of all betting accounts that get opened never make a profit, and those small 5% that do are probably closer to maybe 1 or 2% of people because of multi-accounting, right? It's not 5% of people, because if it's 5% of the number of accounts that get opened actually make a profit, it's probably the same people opening those accounts and making profit over and over again because of limitations and account closures. So understand that if you've only been betting a year, the odds are seriously stacked against you. And even though you've only made, you have made a profit across 30 plus bets, what you don't want to do is, go from betting $1 to $20 because you're on a hot streak, and then go straight to betting $50 or more, and then straight out the gate your luck runs out and you get destroyed. There's actually it's like an actual theory, something to do with beginner's luck. There's like a theory behind it. I can't remember what it's called, but there's like an actual theory. There's like a name for it where I can't remember the name. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment below and let me know the name of it. It actually escapes me now. But there's actually like a theory, like a model you can learn from, where people tend to do very, very well whenever they start something new. And then immediately after that, as they start to learn more, they'll realize that they don't actually really know anything, and then they'll start getting crushed. I can't remember what the actual thing is called. I'm sure many of you will be able to remind me on YouTube. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you have only been betting for a year, it is extremely unlikely that you will be profitable. Maybe you will be one of the outliers. There aren't many. I've never met any personally. But I would say don't go to $50 until you have $50 or more bets, until you have a way bigger sample size. Because even before I started betting on MMA, I had like 5 or 6 years of experience getting destroyed at online poker to build up that gambler's mentality. You know, if you're just starting out, just a year in, there's just not enough time. Way too early on to start betting bigger amounts, in my opinion, because the odds are seriously stacked against you, man. I would say keep it small and learn your craft when you're playing with small stakes, because then if you do get destroyed, when that beginner's luck does run out, it's not going to cost you much money. But I would say a year of gambling. Is it so Tasmanians just said Murphy's Law? Is that it? Thanks to Tasmanian. It sounds familiar. Murphy's Law is a popular adage that states that things will go wrong in any given situation if you give them a chance, or more commonly, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. A number of variants of the rule have been formulated. That doesn't sound like it. No, I don't think it's Murphy's Law, dude. There is the Dunning-Kruger complex. The Saint 1992 has said the Dunning-Kruger complex. Is that it? I don't think that's it either, dude. I don't think that is either. No, it's something where there's like a theory behind it where people do very well when they just start out, and then for whatever reason that falls off a cliff very, very quickly and they start getting destroyed. There's like an actual theory behind it, but I can't remember what that theory is. So no, I would say definitely not, even if you're profitable after 30 bets, it's just a really, really small sample size. I would say go through the fire first, man. Wait until you go through a really bad run, because you will. Everyone does. Even the best gamblers in the world go through a bad run, and just see if you can bounce back from that, because very few people can bounce back from bad runs. And if you can bounce back from a bad run, then it could be time to put your stakes up, because you've gone through the fire and come out the other side. But wait until you go through at least one horrendous run. Because if you go through one horrendous run and you're only betting small stakes, it won't cost you the earth. So if you start betting $50 and then run into your horrendous run, it's not good. And we are having tons of problems with this website. We usually do. This is not a very good website to watch fights on. Let's just forget this. Let's go on to the YouTube fights. That Yuku site, I always seem to have problems with it. Let's go and watch Bozza's fight against Salim Geri Razalov from back at ACB 90. This one went the distance. Let's take a look at this one. So Boser is in the red shorts. I also don't like assessing footage from a fighter when they compete in a ring either, because it's a little bit strange. Like, they can't shoot proper takedowns. You can't really learn too much about their clinch game. So I much prefer assessing Boser based on his fight in this cage here in ACB. So far, some of the small things we learned about in that first round, of Bosser's last fight, is that he was quite passive, quite tentative, didn't shoot any takedowns, which is unfortunate because Spitz is a low-level wrestler. We want to see him go for takedowns. Also, a lot of his shots seem to fall short, but he does seem to move quite well and does seem to be quite fast for a heavyweight, which is probably because he's on the smaller side of being a heavyweight. Okay, so penile erector. I'm already noticing a bit of an issue with your betting strategy. So you're talking about prop bets. So it's very, very difficult to make a profit on prop bets. So that could be one of the areas where you may think short term you're having a lot of success, but you are not probably going to be that successful long term. If you would have said to me that you have, for the past year, you've been crushing it on single bets, I would say sure, go up. Because what you have to remember as well is, liquidity on prop bets is very, very low. So at the moment, you could probably bet props no problem with your stakes being between $1 and $20. Whereas if like a lot of the betting sites, their max bet limits on these props with decent payouts are only like $3, $4, $5. So there's no point in going up to $50 anyway if you specialize in props, because the liquidity won't be there to start betting like $100, $200, $300, $400, $500 on props. You just can't do it. I mean, you can if you're a long-term loser, because remember, max bet limits are variable. So everyone will have different max bet limits, right? So everyone's account will have a different max bet. If you've got a long history on your account of making significant losses, the bookie will allow you to bet more. They'll up your max bet limits because they know that long term they're going to make a lot of money out of you. If you've been floating around break even or grinding out profits, your max bet limits are going to be really low on props, because they don't want to risk you hitting them hard. So they're not going to give you big max bet limits on bets, which could cost them a lot of cash. And I'm just noticing again in this first 3 minutes here, a lot of Bosser's shots are falling short. And this is a really significant detail to pay attention to here, because remember, with Spitz being 6'7", Bosser's going to need to get inside the land. And if all his shots are falling short against guys that are a similar size and a similar range and a similar reach to him, he's definitely going to have trouble getting inside on Spitz. Dick Tapern has asked, what is my pick on the fight between Randy Costa and Boston Salmon? Some really good odds on Costa at the moment. I haven't researched that fight yet, sorry dude, but I will be getting to it over the next few days. So I'm actually feeling a little bit deflated now, boys, because on paper, Bozza felt like he could be a very good bet. But we've now watched 7 minutes of footage on him, and to say I'm a little bit underwhelmed is an understatement. No threat of wrestling, super passive, most of his shots fall short. And to me, I'm starting to see now that the reason why he hasn't been finished since 2015 is because he doesn't like to engage. Which as a heavyweight is pretty damn smart, right? Because every single person you fight has got the power to end your night with one shot. Everyone carries KO power. But at the same time, if you don't pull the trigger, it's very easy to outpoint you. And Boser is just not really showing me much at the moment. Remember, again, this is his UFC debut. You would expect him to start slow while he's adjusting to the bright lights of the UFC. And I honestly, because Spitz is so bad, his takedown defense is very bad. His ground game is very bad. His striking defense is very bad. He's very slow because he's abnormally big for the division. I honestly never thought I would be considering Spitz, but at the moment, I'm not liking what I'm seeing from Boser at all. I was really hoping that Boser would come in and show us some wrestling. Like I say, Spitz is 6'7", right? You look at Spitz, 6'7", 82-inch reach. But generally speaking, a big weakness with guys that are abnormally tall for their division. Yes, there will be outliers like John Jones and Israel Adesanya, but if you think like a Stefan Struve, generally speaking, guys that are that tall do have really bad takedown defense. And Spitz does, and a very low-level ground game. So I was hoping Boser would kind of be a grinder, a wrestler, and he's not. He's a kickboxer. And even though Spitz's striking defense is bad, and he's very slow, Boser's probably not going to be able to make him pay for that from what we've seen so far, because he's struggling to get inside and land anything on guys that are a similar size to him. So he's really going to struggle to get inside on a guy that's 6'7". And Dick Tapern has just said low output from Boser. Not good if it goes the distance. Definitely, man. Definitely, mate. I agree. Again, you know, throws a big overhand right out there. The miss is wide. I mean, nowhere near it. I mean, decent striking defense for sure. He's very fast. He moves well for a heavyweight. Did a good job of slipping that leg kick. But to quote GSP, I am not impressed with your performance. Again, throws a wild... I mean, you can imagine, if he throws that overhand right against Spitz, it's going to get nowhere near Spitz. Spitz is 6'7" with an 82-inch reach. Boss is going to get nowhere near him. All his shots are falling short. No attempt to take the fight to the ground. Very, very underwhelming. Very, very disappointing, actually. I was, at least on paper, Boser was looking like a good bet, and now I'm actually considering a bet on Spitz, which I thought I would never do. What are Spitz's odds? .20. Shit. Absolutely shit. Plus 120 for an implied probability of 45%. Absolutely shit. Because at the moment, from what I'm seeing, this looks like a 50-50 fight for me. So if you bet Spitz at these odds, you're not really getting much value at all. It's not a great deal. Remember, we're always looking to put our money in really strong positions. And for me, this just looks like these boys are going to get into a 15-minute staring contest and someone's going to win a close split decision. What's the odds on the over? Are the over odds out yet? Over 2.5 rounds. That's annoying. The odds are shit again. Bookies not throwing us a bone with this one, boys. Bookies are not throwing us a bone at all. But I am not impressed with Boser at all. In fact, I think that he might be very susceptible to the jab. So I'm going to go back after this and watch some footage of Spitz and specifically look for his jab. How does his jab look? Because with Boser standing very flat-footed, I mean, look, he ate a jab there. With Boser looking very flat-footed, all his shots falling short, with there being a massive size and reach disadvantage, theoretically, Spitz could probably just jab his face off if he's got any kind of jab. And when Boser's going to try and counter with these big power strikes, they're just going to fall short. Eveb M has asked if I'm still betting Stevens this weekend. I'll put a breakdown video out for that soon, mate, in the next couple of days. We will cover that fight soon. I'll try and get it. He ate another very stiff jab there. Isn't that funny, boys? I was starting to see... Isn't this funny? We're now 8 minutes into the fight, and I was starting to see that Boser potentially could be very susceptible to jabs. And within a minute of me saying that, his opponents actually realised the same thing, and he started to land the jab hard now on Boser. There we can see a very nice jab. You know, you just look at Boser with him being quite small for the division, very good at checking kicks, but not so much with punches. He's very susceptible to the jab, and you'd think a guy with a 82-inch reach that stands 6'7" tall would have a very good jab. But I can't speak specifically to Spitz's jab because it wasn't something that I was specifically looking out for when I watched his fights earlier on this morning. And another huge overhand right misses, and it's going to miss wide against a guy like Spitz. So I need to go, and I'm actually going to just go back after we do this live stream and have a little look at Spitz's jab, because the jab is the key to beating Boser, because he doesn't move his head much, doesn't slip punches very well. You could jab his face off, and with Spitz being 6'7", 82-inch reach, that is a big part of victory for Boser. Obviously, if you're watching this live stream video, or you're watching this video after the fact on YouTube, just know I'm probably not going to make a decision on this fight in this video, because I need to go and watch Spitz's recent fights again to assess the quality of his jab. But if you want to understand whether you should bet this fight or not, why don't you go and watch Spitz's fights and you assess his jab? I'm basically telling you what to look out for. The difference in this fight, the thing that will decide this fight, is Spitz's jab, because it's quite clear that Boser isn't a wrestler, he's just a kickboxer, so we don't have to worry too much about Spitz's takedown defense or ground game. Standing up, Boser doesn't look particularly dangerous, and he can't fight his way inside. I know that Spitz is slow and he has bad striking defense, but Boser's not going to find it easy to get inside that 82-inch reach because all his shots are falling short. So the difference here, the thing that decides this fight, will be the jab. Pinal Erecto's asked, do you ever bet props? No, I don't, mate. I do not bet props. Dick Turpin has shared a YouTube video. Spitz versus Cabbage. I won't watch that fight, dude, because that was from quite a long time ago. Thanks for sharing. But Dick Turpin has just shared Daniel Spitz's fight from back in 2016 against Wesley Carrera. I don't want to watch that because it was such a long time ago. You know, Spitz is only 29 years old. Back when that fight took place, you know, he would have been 26 years old. So that isn't going to tell us a lot about what he's going to bring to the table on Saturday night, because he would have improved so much since then. So we won't watch the Correa fight, but I will go back and watch his fights on Fight Pass. Check out his jab. See how he did against Walt Harris. See how he did against... Anthony Hamilton. The fight ended pretty quickly. And also see how he did against Mark Godbeer. And again, when you see a fighter throw like a spinning attack like that, it is just a sign that they're not that confident in their stand-up. You see that spinning attack missed wild. He threw that because he just had a lack of ideas. He's struggling to get inside on Razalov. It's very underwhelming. Very, very disappointed. I can tell you right now that I won't be betting Boser as the favourite. Absolutely not a chance in hell. Boser is a clear pass. But as an underdog, Spitz is interesting. But whether I bet him or not is really going to come down to what his jab looks like. Because remember, his current odds are around 2.20. That's only an implied probability of 45%. And from what I've seen so far, it is looking like a 50-50 fight for me. Now, some people will bet on a guy at 2.20 with an implied probability of 45% if they believe the fight is 50-50. Personally, that's not a good enough risk to reward ratio for me. In my opinion, that's putting your money in a marginal position, so it's not something I'm interested in. Mathematically, Spitz isn't going to be a bad bet based on what I've seen here, but it's not for me. But if Spitz has got a decent jab, I may cap this fight in his favour instead of being 50-50. And at that point, Spitz would become a potential bet. But there's nothing that I've seen from Boser, to me, which I think he does well. Like, he moves well for a heavyweight. He's light on his feet. Or at least he was in the fight in M1. He's not in this fight. He's quite flat-footed here. Susceptible to the jab because he literally stands right in front of his opponent, doesn't move his head much, struggles to get inside. I mean, even there, he threw that telegraph right hand that landed on the chest of Razalov, and Razalov's a similar size to him. You know, imagine how far short a punch like that would land against an opponent that's 6'7" with an 82-inch reach. You would get nowhere near Spitz. I don't care how slow Spitz is, don't care how bad his striking defense is. It's quite clear Boser can't get inside, and we saw that in his last fight. The last fight that we watched from him in that first round against M1 Challenge. I was hoping that Boser was looking very tentative because he was in a ring. And he was just taking a little bit of time to find his range. It doesn't appear to be the case, though. Whitetail 178 has asked, how often do you bet the favourites to win? I'm not sure, dude. I don't really think about it. I would say I definitely bet favourites more than I bet underdogs. If I had to put a percentage on it, I would say maybe I bet favourites like 70% of the time, and maybe like underdogs 30% of the time. That is a total guess. Could be way off. Could be like 90-10. Could be like 60-40. I honestly have no idea. I don't try and focus on like underdogs, favourites too much. I just look for strong positions to put my money. That's all I care about. And Boser is sending me to sleep. He's getting aggressive now with a minute left to go in the fight. But he's making me hungry and he's making me tired. And it's only 12:30. It's lunchtime. I don't know about you boys, but I am hungry. As soon as this video is done, we're going to go grab some food. Now Boser getting aggressive, but again, shots just falling short. And it's not even like Razlov's having to work that hard to slip him. He's just moving backwards and the shots are falling short. And here you can see, Boser does switch stance from southpaw to orthodox, but another huge right hand misses wide. He's he's getting aggressive here. If Boser came out like this, came out aggressive like that against Spitz, he'd stand a decent chance of knocking him out, because Spitz, 6'7", very tall, very rigid, doesn't move his head that much, he's quite slow, bad striking defense. There's a very good chance he'd land a bomb, but he only did it in the final minute. This is Bozza against Chase Gormley from back in June 2018. How old is Boser? Bozer's 28 years old, so you would expect him to be making big improvements from fight to fight, but if he's tentative, if he struggles to pull the trigger, it's unlikely he's going to be more aggressive in his UFC debut, where historically guys that fight in the UFC debut under the bright lights are a lot more tentative than usual, while they basically shake off the octagon jitters. And I know I'm repeating myself over and over again, but what can we really say here? This is this is a live research video. I know these live research videos are very rough, but we're just foraging for information, right? It would be great to see Boser shoot a takedown. We can learn a little bit about his takedowns or his wrestling. But because he isn't really showing us much more, there's not really much more for us to talk about. Two very nice kicks to open this round. A decent head kick, decent leg kick. Sorry, Eveb M, I haven't researched that fight yet, mate. John Neola 6 has asked if I'm going to do a live research video on Sean Woodson. Is that the guy fighting Karl Botniak? It is. If there's recent footage available on him, yeah, for sure, man. So I'll be able to watch this one from the Contender Series. If I can find these fights, I'll for sure do a live research video on that. Maybe even later on. Although I need some food, man. I am flagging. I don't think Bozer's helping. It's hard to get excited about this fight here. Hard to get excited. Drake Riggs 420. Drake Riggs is saying Boser has Khabib-style wrestling. He might. It'd be nice for him to show us. It would be very nice for him to show us. We can possibly make some money then this weekend. You see Boser is southpaw here for some reason. Maybe it's because his power right hand is missing wide. Perhaps he's trying to catch. He's actually switched to southpaw to throw the head kick. So he's switching head kick because he's obviously more comfortable in his head kick with his left power leg. You see him kind of going back to switch stance to a southpaw there, but all his power shots miss wide. Thanks a lot, Stillburn. Nice one, mate. Tasmanian 187 saying Botniak looked good against Zabit. Very true, although it is worth noting that Zabit broke his hand at some point in that fight. Not exactly sure when. Let's find out, which would excuse him for a poor performance. in round 2 or 3. Broken hand. Botniak. Let's see when he broke his hand. At what point in the fight was it? Oh, okay, he went into the fight with a broken hand. I'm pretty sure he went into the fight with a broken hand. He didn't want to pull out. In the first round, I hit my right hand really hard, and I believe it's broken. Okay. So Zabit broke his hand in the first round. So that's probably why he didn't look great against Botniak. Because he was fighting with a broken hand for the second and third round, right? So we can't say, Botniak looked good against Zabit. I mean, he did, but a large part of Botniak looking good against Zabit was, Zabit was probably fighting with one hand for the second or third round. Oh, hey, Soppy. How you doing, man? How are you doing, dude? And boys, this fight, right, is a great example. This fight is a great example of why there is no glamour in being a professional gambler at all. There's no gambling. There's no glamour. You're not walking around casinos, hanging out with like hot girls, walking around with like briefcases full of cash. No, it's not glamour. You sit here by yourself in a room watching guys like this every day. It's really not the most exciting job in the world, and this is why like people get really surprised when I say, if I never watched an MMA fight again, if I never placed another bet again, it really wouldn't bother me. You know what I mean? Because it is one of those things, you get burnt out. Like, imagine being sat at your desk for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours a day watching fights like this. That is why I like it's a great job. I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't do anything else because it gives me a lot of freedom, and obviously you can earn a lot of money from it, but it's not the most fun job to sit here all day watching shit like this. It really isn't. And we can see, we've watched 15, 20, we've watched 25 minutes of footage on Boser. No takedown attempts. Absolutely no takedown attempts at all. Which also says to me he's got bad fight IQ, right? Because all these rounds are very close. And, you need to put your stamp on rounds in order to win a round. And really, aside from where he turned the pressure up in that final minute of his last fight against Razalov, we haven't really seen him go for it. Just happy to get into like a staring contest where he's happy to leave it up to the judges who won. It's playing with fire, So Definite Integral has said Spitz likes to kick. He didn't throw a single jab in the first round against Harris. So Integral doing a bit of our research for us here. Nice one, mate. Thanks a lot for that, dude. So that's interesting from Definite Integral, right? Because the way I'm capping this fight at the moment is if Spitz's jab isn't good, I think this becomes a 50-50 fight where both guys get into a staring contest with each other for 15 minutes. Someone wins a split decision. Spitz, from what Definite Integral's saying, has probably got the advantage when it comes to kicks, because obviously he can use his long legs, his 6'7" frame to land kicks on Boser from positions where Boser can't counter, because remember, the majority of punches from Boser fall short because I don't know why he doesn't like to engage, but also the size difference will make it difficult for Boser to land his power shots. But if Spitz did have a jab, I would favour him here. But at the moment, this is looking like a 50-50 fight for me. A cagey, tentative, close, passive fight. Bit of a snooze fest, most likely, which is probably going to go the distance. Which is why, I mean, to be fair, really speaking, to see the over 2.5 rounds set on a heavyweight fight at odds of 1.57, the bookies have done their homework here, because you often see odds like this on the lighter weight classes, the women's divisions, the lighter weight classes, the featherweight fights, the lightweight fights, the bantamweight fights in the men's division, where fights are more likely to go the distance in the lower weight classes because fighters don't tend to carry as much power as the higher weight classes. Finishes, as you go down the weight classes, become less common. So the bookies have obviously done their homework on this fight and set the odds quite accurately. It is more likely that this heavyweight fight goes the distance, which is very rare for a heavyweight fight, Usually heavyweight fights are more likely to end inside the distance. I'm sure if we check the odds on the other heavyweight fight on this card, Sazoli against Hardy, you can see there the over set at over 1.5 rounds instead of over 2.5 rounds, and it's actually set at underdog odds at plus money as opposed to favourite odds. So that goes to show very unusual odds on the over here for a heavyweight fight, but the bookies have clearly done their homework on this one. And Dick Turpin has just said that he's going to leave this fight well alone. It's a bad start to the night. Certainly doesn't look like it's going to be the most exciting fight. I mean, you never know. If Spitz forces Boser to engage, you never know. But from watching Spitz's past fights, Spitz kind of likes to stay on the outside and try and use his long reach to chip away at his opponents. But if Definite Integral has said he hasn't got a jab, not sure how effective Spitz will be chipping away at Boser with kicks, because in the footage we've watched, Boser's been quite good at slipping kicks. Dick Turpin has said the Spitz... So it's actually an interesting comment that Dick Turpin has said to contradict what Definite Integral has said. So Dick Turpin has said the Spitz does throw jabs, and this is why it's so annoying that I can't use UFC footage. Like, why can't I just use UFC footage so we can watch Spitz together in this video or on this live stream to assess Spitz's jab together? But Dick Turpin contradicting a little bit of what Definite Integral has said by saying that Spitz does throw jabs but they're not damaging. Well, it doesn't really matter whether they're damaging or not, because it's quite clear that, a fight against Boser is going to be quite close. It's probably going to be a point fighting kind of matchup where, whoever lands more is going to end up taking the rounds. So it doesn't matter if Spitz's jabs don't do damage. As long as he's landing, that will trump what Boser's doing, because Boser doesn't land a lot. Like I say, most of Boser's shots fall short, and the size difference will mean he's probably going to find it very difficult to get inside. It doesn't matter whether Spitz does damage with his jab or not. As long as he's landing, that's all that counts, right? And we're now coming up to our 35th minute of watching Boser. No takedown attempts. Isn't really showing us too much different. I mean, he's thrown a few more kicks in this fight. Hasn't really landed many. He has thrown a few more. I don't really think we need to watch the fight against DJ Lindemann. I've seen enough, boys. Time is money. Don't need to watch another one. So probably wrap this video up after we watch this fight, boys. I mean, Boser's not bringing anything new to the table. And this is the third fight of his that we've watched. I've seen all I need to see. So if you do have any questions about this fight, boys, drop it in the live chat on Twitch. Drake Riggs, shout out to Drake Riggs. Hope he has bought some new glasses for this week's event so that he can score fights more accurately than he did last week. The next fight is on my radar. It's probably going to be... I'm gonna do the Court McGee versus Sean Brady fight, only because there's not much footage available on Brady. So by the time I finish this, have some lunch, I'll only have like an hour or so before I have to pick my son up from school. So I can probably squeeze in researching this fight in like an hour, because like I say, there's only really one recent fight available of Brady's online, and I can watch 2 or 3 of McGee's recent fights, which means I'll get this fight done and that fight done before I pick my son up from school. So that's like 2 off the list, which isn't bad going. So yeah, I'll probably do that fight, not because it's of any particular interest to me, but simply because I can squeeze it in before getting my son, so it's like a good use of time. Because what I don't want to do is jump into another fight which might be more interesting for betting. So for example, Gillian Robertson against Macy Barber. What I don't want to do is like have to start it now, then go pick my son up from school, bring him home, spend some time with him, cook him food, all that kind of stuff, and then go back to it several hours later when the fights aren't as fresh in my mind. I like to watch all the footage like at the same time, so everything's fresh in your memory and you can like visualize how both fighters match up. So that's why I'm going to squeeze in that Brady versus McGee fight. Penal Erecto. I have already researched the Cezzoli versus Greg Hardy fight. Probably going to do a breakdown on that later on. I'm probably going to do that with the Weidman Reyes breakdown. So Vampitdu has said that Boser versus Smolderev shows Boser against the 6'5" tall fighter. So he fought Smolderev back in May 2017. But I mean, we don't need. I mean, if his shots are falling short against a guy, that's a similar size to him, they're definitely going to fall short against a taller, rangier opponent. So we don't really need to watch that. It's just a bit of a waste of time. Nice one, Kex. Thanks a lot, mate. So Kex saying it is an easy pass for him. Definitely agree with you, dude. Penal Erect. See, this is what's concerning. So earlier on in the video, Penal Erecto was telling us that he wanted to up his stakes from $1 to $20 bets up to $50 plus bets, as he's been crushing it. But he's just told me that Cezzoli is easy money. So red flags, my man. Red flags. Definitely wouldn't be up in my stakes yet if you think a guy like Ben Cezzoli is going to be easy money. That's all I would say about that. So here we see Gormley coming forward, forcing Boser to engage. Gormley possibly showing some urgency here, sensing it might be a close fight. He's trying to take it to Boser a little bit, but we can see Boser not interested in engaging, just circled away from Gormley. Every time Gormley's coming forward here, we can see Boser just circling away from him. This is going to be, I will tell you right now, boys, just in what we've seen in this round, it's quite clear that Boser wants to counter-strike, right? Because he is not pulling the trigger when he stood right in front of his opponent, and when his opponent comes forward, he's trying to circle away from them and catch them as they're coming forward. So that means that this fight could actually end up being a total shit show, because Spitz is also a counter striker. He likes to stay on the outside and chip away at his opponents. And when you have 2 counter strikers, then when neither guy wants to lead, you quite often end up with these really awkward, tentative, passive fights where not a lot happens, because you get both guys trying to wait for the other one to lead, and when neither of them does lead, nothing happens, and they do end up getting into a staring contest, which is why this fight could end up being extremely boring, just because of how the 2 styles match up. Because Spitz is going to want to stay on the outside and chip away at Boser as he comes forward, but if Boser doesn't come forward, well, there's not going to be any action. Do you see what I mean? Because Spitz isn't going to want to lead. So it's a bit of a shit show, really. It's got split decision written all over it. And, even though Spitz is the underdog, he does have a lot of holes. And with the implied probability on his odds being 45%, I mean, how much value are you really getting there? I mean, it's not like you're putting yourself in an incredibly strong position. If someone said to me, oh, I'm betting Spitz this weekend, I think he's a great bet, I'd be like, okay, maybe, maybe. If Boser maybe fought smart for once, came out, shot a takedown, would be a rough night for Spitz. But then, Spitz actually done his homework over the last 2 months on Boser and developed a jab, or maybe Spitz wins easily. It's tough to say, right? I mean, Definite Integral has said this, Spitz didn't throw any jabs against Walt Harris, but remember the kind of guy Walt Harris is, right? Harris, very, very technical kickboxer, probably one of the best strikers in the heavyweight divisions. He's very fast for the division, very technical, hits very hard, legit KO power in every strike. Problem is, when you throw a jab, obviously you leave yourself open to big counters, and Spitz isn't the fastest guy, doesn't move his head much, doesn't have very good striking defense, so perhaps he was afraid to throw the jab out there against Harris for fear of eating a big counter strike. Whereas perhaps he'll be more willing to throw the jab against Boser, because Boser will stand right in front of him. Whereas I remember watching that fight, because I watched it this morning, Harris was applying a ton of pressure and walking him down. So maybe he didn't feel confident in throwing the jab, because if, like what Drake Riggs said is true, it wasn't Drake Riggs, if what Dick Turpin said was true, where Spitz doesn't do any damage with his jab, perhaps he didn't feel comfortable throwing the jab for Harris because he lacked the power in the jab to back Harris up, which is the reason why you usually throw a jab, right? To keep your opponent backed up. It's a defensive kind of strike and a range-finding kind of strike. He didn't want to throw that jab in case Harris just came through it with a big counter. Whereas a guy like Boser that will stand in front of him, the jab is more there for him, is basically what I'm trying to say. This is the life of pro gambler life, boys, right? I just sit here, man, watching fights all day, having these little discussions in my head. And it's really cool now that I get to think out loud with you boys, right? Boys and girls, whoever's watching. Because it's like, when I do these live research videos, they're very rough. They're not like planned, they're not scripted. Very nice spinning back fist landed there. But I before watching the footage on Boser, I didn't know anything about him, so we're kind of learning about these boys. While I summarise, we will throw on this fight with Lindemann, but I'm learning about these fighters with you when we do these live research videos. So I'm just thinking out loud, and I'm trying to process what I'm seeing and cap this fight in the moment with you guys. We're doing it together, right? You guys are helping me out, like Definite Integral dropping knowledge. Drake Riggs dropping knowledge, Dick Turpin dropping knowledge. We're all doing this together. And it's kind of like, from what I've seen, I just wouldn't bet either of these guys at the moment. But I am going to go back and watch some more footage on Spitz. Because even though I watched him this morning, I wasn't specifically looking for the jab. So I'll quite often do this. What I'll quite often do is I'll watch some fights from one guy and assess his weaknesses. Then I'll watch some fights from his opponent and assess his weaknesses. Then I will go back and watch the first guy, but through a different lens. I will specifically look out for what skills he possesses that could potentially exploit the weaknesses of his opponent, and vice versa. I'll repeat the process for both sides. So it's kind of like a two-stage process, which is annoying because I can't show you the second stage of this process, because obviously Daniel Spitz's fights are copyright protected on Fight Pass. But that will be the next step of this research. And you might be asking, well, if you don't see any opportunities to bet at the moment, why would you go and do that two-stage process? Why just not move on to the next fight? And the answer to your question is, because if I see Spitz jabbing someone's face off in one of his past fights, I'm going to be very tempted to bet him at underdog odds. Because based on what I'm seeing at the moment, I believe the fight is 50-50. But if I see Spitz with a decent jab in one of his past fights, that probability might move to 55-45 in favour of Spitz, or 60-40 in favour of Spitz. And at that point, there is value on Spitz. Because with his current implied probability at odds of 2.20 coming out of 45%, if we can cap him at 55 to 60%, we're getting, you know, a 10 to 15% margin over the where the bookies cap him. And with a high risk bet like this, where we're definitely going to be taking on a lot of risk no matter who we were to bet, that's a decent margin over the bookie. And also, even if I don't find a bet on this fight, I'm going to be able to use the information that I gained from watching these boys in live betting, and to be able to see things, kind of see into the future in live betting, to make better betting decisions when I fire off my live bets. So this is why I literally sit here all week watching fights, because they give us so much information that we can work with. And already, if you are watching this video right here with me today, there are 52 people watching this, you know exactly what to expect from Boser this weekend. A hell of a lot more than 99% of people that will be watching this event. 99.9% of people that watch this event. So what we will do now, boys, we don't need to see anything else. We've watched enough of this guy. I will just see if we've got any questions on the Twitch live chat, and if not, we will call it a day here. This will be it for this video. Nice one, Tasmanian. Thanks a lot, dude. Tasmanian just saying he loves the live breakdowns. Nice one, mate. I should have a few more live breakdowns for this card. I don't know how much footage available is on Sean Woodson, but if there's a decent amount of footage available on him, we will do this fight. Can't do this one because all her past fights are on Fight Pass, so they're copyright protected. How many more? So we might be able to do Woodson. Oh, that's it, boys. That is it. I can't do one on Pierce because there's not that much recent footage available on him that's not copyright protected. And the same goes for Sazoli. So we might only have one more live research video for this card. And it looks like it's going to be Botniak against Woodson. But I might try and do that tonight because it probably won't take long to do this one. He's only fought 3 times in the last... Oh, yeah, this fight's going to be on Fight Pass. Might do this one later on. Definite Integral saying the fight footage doesn't lie. You are right, man. At the end of the day, this is why when I give my breakdowns, so many people disagree with me. I'm always kind of saying, right, and it might make me sound like some fucking jerk, some arrogant jerk, but this is why I do get annoyed when people disagree with my breakdowns, because I always say, I'm not giving you my opinion on a fight. I am absolutely not giving you my opinion. I am just summarising what I've seen. It's kind of like the footage doesn't lie, right? If you watch footage and you understand fighting on a very deep level, everyone should pretty much come to the same conclusion. So when people disagree with me on these fights, it's kind of like I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm just giving you facts, giving you the stuff I've seen. Like, I don't feel anyone can disagree with my assessment of this fight based on what we've seen from Boser today. And if you go watch Spitz's fights, if you go watch Boser's fights, I don't think you can disagree with my assessment of this fight. And the same should go for every matchup. Doesn't matter whether it's Adesanya or Whittaker, or, like I say, Boser versus Spitz. But on that note, boys, if you do disagree with this video, if you haven't fallen asleep yet, if you are still watching on YouTube, please hit the like button below and leave a comment and let me know if you do disagree. Let me know if you will be betting Boser. Let me know if you will be betting Spitz. Who knows? I might be betting Spitz if I go back and watch his past fights and see him with a nice jab. But like Definite Integral said, he doesn't really have one. And I can't remember seeing a particularly good jab either in the fights that I watched from his this morning. So unless I've completely missed something, this is probably going to be a pass for me. But please hit the like button, boys. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to leave a comment on the video and let me know what you think. So take care, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'll be back very, very soon with another breakdown video.